Well, hey, Pastor, it's Richard Chansey with 24 to Double, and I am so excited about the topic that I'm going to be covering with you today. This is called 9 Lessons Learned from Coaching 2,198 Churches on the subject of church growth. Now, I wrote this description earlier this morning, and we've had a heck of a day of bringing new churches on board, so we've added actually 5 to that today to our process called 24 to Double. Now, for those of you that don't know what 24 to Double is, it's simply this. It's a 2-year church growth program called 24 to Double, meaning we've designed it in a way for you to put systems and teams in place over the next 2 years, and it's designed to help you double your church. Now, a couple of things you need to know about this 24 to Double. We did a survey recently around some live stream training that we did, and we had about 600 churches take our survey, and I wanted to throw some stats at you just in case you're thinking, well, those churches are probably not like my church. 77% of the pastors that took the survey were less than 200, and there is a massive number of them that are between that 80 and 150 mark. The bulk of the churches that are drinking in the 24 to Double information that Pastor Jerry Lawson is putting out are churches that are probably not that much different than yours. Do we have larger churches in there? Absolutely, we do. I actually had a conversation at a conference a couple months ago with a pastor, and I think they went from maybe 800 to about 14 or 1,500. So it'll definitely work in larger churches too. We'll talk about that later or at another time. We do a live Q&A every month with our members, and that's where we kind of get this taste of who is in our program and what are the big questions and challenges that they're facing. And so what I wanted to do today is just spend a few minutes running down some of the things that I've learned. I got Jerry to kick in some information for this as well, from a pastor's point of view, from a pastor who took a church from 60 to more than 2,500 people in average weekly attendance, just some of his learnings about what we've learned over the last 4 years with this 24 to Double process. So today what I'm going to do is just kind of run down these 9 things that I feel like I've learned, and I hope these will be beneficial for you. Now, when I'm talking today, I'm talking about pastors that have jumped into our process, engaged that process, made it their own, and then put it into play in their churches. So there's a lot of stuff we've learned about churches that are maybe not ready, or pastors that are more willing to talk about change than they are willing to actually go out and create change in the world. And I know that we all find ourselves in that place from time to time. That's not a slam. That's basically saying sometimes you're stuck and you're just not ready to get unstuck yet. And so things that will get you unstuck are probably not going to be planted and grow very well. So with that being said, let's dive in. Here's the first thing that most pastors that we engage with that really make this process work are aware of the ministry gap that they're living in. And by that I mean they come to us aware of the gap between the ministry that they were called to and the one that they are experiencing. And I think that is an incredible revelation. Now, let me qualify this by saying there should always be a gap, right? There should always be a vision that's a little bit farther down the road from where you are right now. And there's definitely a very positive mentality to knowing a vision, understanding where God is taking you, and being on a path to getting there. The gap I'm talking about is the one where you really just don't know if you were called into ministry or if it was just the pizza you had last night. That's the gap that most churches come to us. In fact, I would say, I can't qualify this perfectly, but I would say that 99 out of 100 churches that come into the 24 to Double process are hopelessly stuck in where they are with their church. That's why they're out looking for content like 24 to Double to be able to come in and bring into their church. So I would say that most every church that started this process realized that there was a gap, and they're finally ready to do something about it. That is a critical element to creating change in your church, that you understand that there is that gap, and you know that the gap can only be bridged by you hearing God's voice and moving forward. And let me just tell you this right now. If you're watching this today, here's what I know. God is not done with you yet in ministry, okay? You wouldn't be sitting here learning something about how to grow your church if God was done. God put that desire inside of you. No matter what you're feeling about your ministry right now, let me tell you this. God's not done yet, and he's getting ready to do something. The second thing, strong leaders leverage calls to action. This is one of the biggest challenges I see in church today, in the way that we're leading, in the way that we're teaching, in the way we're preaching, is we will teach an incredible message and we don't have a call to action. In fact, there's so many pastors that are taking the pulpit, the stage every week with no idea about what they're about to ask people to do. And when they are clear on it, it's still kind of vague in the minds of people. Let me tell you this. The confused mind says no, Pastor. And if you can't get people in your church to take action, it's probably because of this one issue. You have not clearly defined the action that you want them to take. In fact, there's probably only maybe 4 to 6 actions that we ever want them to take, right? We want them to put their faith in Jesus. We want them to read their Bible. We want them to give. We want them to serve. We want them to invite their friends. We want them to get into community. Now, I'm sure there's a couple others, but every week when you take the stage to talk, you should be driving forward towards one of those call to actions. Now, you may not want to do an altar call every week in a series where you're teaching on salvation, but you got to know that you're driving to that thing at the end of that series. And so your call to action for week 1 might be baiting people to show up for week 2. You're not going to want to miss this. That kind of thing. Calls to action are huge, and not just from stage either. When people show up to your information desk and say, hey, how do I get more involved here? You need to have a call to action. You need to have a plan that's mapped out that's going to help people walk that path. The cool thing about 24 to Double is that we teach you how to build the team of people that think about that so you don't have to. The third thing that successful pastors are doing is they realize that there is no shortage. There's not a shortage of money, Pastor. There's not a shortage of volunteers. There's not a shortage of people that are willing to go out and invite their friends. There is no shortage except for the one that you allow to be created, right? Everything you need to be able to go out and reach people that are far from God, but right outside the doors of your church, everything that you need is currently inside the walls of your church. God made it that way. He's waiting for you to partner with him to reach people that are far from God, okay? Number 4, they understand the why and they do it. This is a big thing, and you hear about why, the why in a lot of different places. For me, my why is God created me to ignite passion in God's people to reach the world for Christ by creating and leveraging disruption. Okay, I really understand when I go in and I start to tackle something, I understand that God put me here to ignite passion in his people and to reach the world for Christ. Lately, he's been just saying, feed the shepherd, feed the shepherd, feed the shepherd. And so that's what I'm trying to do today, Pastor, is to feed you just a little bit of encouragement and maybe some direction on how to move forward. In addition to the why, this next one is kind of an off take of that. But when you really understand your why, you understand, this is the statement. Pastors that are growing their churches, they say no to good ideas so that they can say yes to great ideas. Now, understanding your why is a critical element of that. It becomes the first filter that you have for saying no. And let me just tell you, if you don't do anything else to grow your church, Pastor, just wake up every day and say no to things that are not directly in line with the vision that God is putting on your heart to move forward. Just say no. Now, here's the thing. You may be thinking, well, Richard, I don't have a clear vision. Let me tell you why that is for most of you. It's because you said yes to too many things. You're over here doing this thing. You're over here doing this thing. In church, we need to get laser focused on taking the message out into the nations, out into our cities. And everything that keeps us from doing that, we need to say, go with my blessings, and you do it. When somebody shows up and says, Pastor, we really ought to, you can say, hey, I agree, we ought to do that. And as part of this body of Christ, here's what I want to do for you. I'm going to pray for you right now, and then I'm going to send you out. Okay? The vision that God gave you, he gave it to you and not to this church, because the vision of this church is this, and just throw it out to them. Okay? It makes it super easy for you not to get bogged down in everybody's ideas about what you ought to do. That will eliminate a lot of confusion in your church, Pastor. They leverage influence wisely. Okay, influence is interesting. I worked for John Maxwell for years, and John's definition of influence is, or leadership is that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. Every day, Pastor, you are either making deposits or withdrawals of influence from people in your church. Okay, and what we want to be able to do is be able to take that influence and leverage it towards that vision. Okay, we don't want to use it for everything under the sun. We don't want to be asking favors that are not directly in proportion to moving in that direction. Inside 24 to Double, how pastors are leveraging influence is they are building relationships with leaders, people that are strong leaders. They're understanding who they are. We've got a gifts and passions test that helps with that. But they are understanding who the leaders in their organization are. They're building relationships with those people, investing in those people. And then when it's time for those people to lead, they bring them in and they let them lead. And that's the way that you leverage influence with people. You can build influence from stage, Pastor. You can build it in the hallway. You can build it over a cup of coffee. But build influence and then leverage that influence, not for your own sake, Pastor, but for the sake of reaching people for God. And I don't say that for your own sake so that you'll think that Richard thinks that I leverage my influence for my own sake. Here's why I say that. You're not doing this for you. Don't ever forget that. When you're asking people to give, to serve, to invite their friends, that is not them doing you a favor, Pastor. That is you inviting people in to spiritual development. It is the path. When you give, you serve, you invite, and you live in community, that is the path to spiritual development. That's how we grow as believers. And you shouldn't be thinking you're doing somebody a favor by asking them to walk that journey, because that is where life is. Life to the full. Number 7, they don't reinvent wheels that don't need to be reinvented. Now, I understand that a lot of you have probably planted a church and God broke something inside of you that the rest of us feel like it's fixed because you tackle the world by saying, hey, I think there's a better way to do this. Hey, I'm praying for you. I agree with you. Go out there and get them. But everything doesn't have to be reinvented. How you greet your host teams don't have to be reinvented. Okay, they might need to be pepped up. They might be turned up a notch. How you do outreach, you need to build a team around that, Pastor. How you do that doesn't necessarily need to be reinvented. It has been reinvented in the last few years, how we reach out and how we connect with people. Heck, you're watching this video right now. Think about, 5-10 years ago, we couldn't communicate like this, but now we have this unique ability to do that. Well, you've got to be able to create a group of people that thinks about that stuff and goes in that direction, but you don't need to reinvent the whole thing. There's tons of great training out there. We think ours is one of them, but I also know that there's a lot of other great training that's going to get you 50, 60, 70, 80% of where you need to be without completely starting over and frustrating people on the front end, because John Maxwell also says that momentum is a leader's best friend. And when you can start at 70%, Pastor, momentum is just right around the corner. It is just about taking action quickly. And that's really what we help you do in 24 to Double. So let me talk about 24 to Double. What is it? Well, it's a 24-month process. We call it a conference in a box. The big difference is, instead of you going to a conference and spending hundreds or thousands of dollars to take your team out to a conference with hotels and foods and airfare and gas or whatever, we bring the conference right into your church. In fact, we bring it in so that you can watch it with your church in your church. Now, I did not realize how profound that was when I first partnered with Jerry and Lance to be able to take this message out to the Word. I had no idea how big a deal that was, because, Pastor, you and I both know we go to conferences all the time, and by the time we get in our car, we're thinking, man, that was a great conference. I learned so much. Now, what did he say about follow-up and how I should be following up? Well, with 24 to Double, you don't have to worry about that. You just go back and watch the video again. The best thing about it, Pastor, is you don't have to learn how to do this before you hand it off. We literally encourage you to sit down with your team, watch the videos, get a plan together, and take action. It's just as simple as that. And you can do it. 2,198 churches have already engaged the process. I promise you, if the churches that are in 24 to Double, it covers every kind of church that's out there. Okay, so I'm trying to stay with my notes and not get too far off topic, because I'm pretty passionate about this 24 to Double thing. The gap that I talked about up front, Pastor, if that resonated with you, hey, just do yourself a favor and check out the link that's in the description above. That link will take you right to a page that's got a full-length description and a bunch of details, as well as some testimonies from other pastors. And best yet is, if you go on that page, you can actually kick the tires of 24 to Double for 15 days for just $7. So if that's of interest to you, just head on over there now or later, and you can figure that out. Let me tell you this last thing about that. We are quite a few minutes into this. I'm not even sure how long ago I started this. Let's say we're 15 minutes in. Here's what I know about you, Pastor. You're hanging out and you're looking for anything, any morsel of information that you can take and leverage in your church. And God put that in you because he's trying to leverage you to reach people for Christ. And I'll tell you this, Jerry and I and Lance and the whole 24 to Double team, you're exactly the kind of pastor that we want to partner with. So click that link, try it out for 15 days. And if after 15 days you don't like what you see, you can cancel. You can cancel within the first 60 days and we'll give you all your money back. And if you cancel within the first 15 days, if you want us to, I'll send you your $7. Okay, I believe in this product. I believe in pastors like you that are willing to do the work and invest in themselves so that they can go out and reach people that are far from Christ. Okay, let me finish this up with two more things, number 8 and number 9. Number 8 is the pastors that are successful, they put ministry in the hands of people that were created to do that ministry. Pastor, you doing everything yourself. You know what you're doing? You're stealing somebody's ministry from them. Ooh, that's strong language. I don't know if I meant for it to be that strong, but let me just tell you, Pastor, you doing everything means you're stealing somebody else's ability to do ministry. The things that you wake up every day and you think, can't believe I got to do this today. Somebody gets wired up about that. Somebody is fired up about doing those things, and all you got to do is set them free. You got to be able to put some systems in place to get more volunteers doing ministry in your church. Now, what a lot of people don't know is how a church really grows healthily. Healthily? How a healthy church grows. A healthy church grows from the inside out, Pastor. That means if you've got a system that gets people into volunteering, that's a healthy system. When people come in, if you put them in the right places on the bus and they're in passionate ministry, they're not in favor ministry, meaning Pastor asked me to do this, so I'm going to do it. But when they are in passionate ministry, Pastor, they don't get burned out. Right? They get propelled forward. And you, Pastor, you and I both know when people get burned out in church, they don't go back to a pew. They go away because they don't want to see your face and feel like they're letting you down. So building those systems on the inside means that as new people come in, you got the systems together, you're ready to grow. It also means this, the Pareto principle, which means that 20% of the people in your church are doing 80% of the work. Well, if you start building system and all of a sudden, let's say your church is 200 people, that means 40 people in your church are doing most of the work. And most of you are going, yep, that's how it works in my church. If you can add another 20 to that, so you grow that number by 150%, what'll happen is your church is going to grow by 150%. Okay? Because systems you put in place, churches grow from the inside out. You're going to be fighting that homeostasis at 20%. Because if you added 20 more people, what's going to happen is your church is going to level out so that only 20% of people are doing 80% of the work, which means you're going to grow. Now, you're growing by a lot of people that are not getting engaged right away, which is why you got to build those systems to drive people into volunteer. That's one of the big things we want to teach you in 24 to Double, Pastor. And we don't want to teach it to you. We actually want to teach it to somebody that's wired for it in your church. The last thing, and this is huge, pastors that are successful, they reach out. And here's what that means. They're reaching out and finding good information. They're leveraging ideas, borrowing ideas, stealing ideas from other places that they can put into place in their church to reach lost people. They're also reaching out once they've learned something and adding value back to the tribe, pushing information out so that other people can learn. Pastor, the church down the street is not your competitor. They are your brothers in Christ, sisters in Christ, and we're going to be in heaven together. It makes a lot of sense to pull people in as you're building momentum. And you're not going to be able to teach them everything, but what you can do is teach them something. Bring them into an idea, encourage a pastor, lead him down the path to helping him understand, whether that's 24 to Double or some other church resource or preaching resource or giving resource, whatever that is. But invest in yourself, take content in, take information in, and then share that information with people that will benefit from it. That's other pastors, that's other ministry people, that's youth pastors that are working their way towards full-time senior pastor leadership. Invest in yourself and then invest in other people. Okay? I hope you will take me up on this offer to try 24 to Double again. There's a link in the description of this video. I think I put it in there twice. I never know how much information the description is going to take. But I would love to see you go ahead and kick the tires on that. Again, the way the guarantees work is $7, kick the tires for 2 weeks. You won't be charged anything for 2 weeks. We'll send you an email that basically says get out before that 2 weeks is up. You can try it risk-free for 60 days. And then we also have this 2-year guarantee that says if you engage with 24 to double over the next 2 years, if you really put your best efforts into it and you don't feel like you got results out of it, then we will refund every single cent that you invested into 24 to double. But here's the thing. Don't go into it with the attitude of, I'm going to do this and get my money back. I promise you, there is life in this. There is life in you engaging your church and engaging people in your church to do more ministry inside. Build those systems so that you can reach out. And when people come in, not only will they come in, they will come back, Pastor. Okay? Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this was valuable to you. I look forward to seeing you inside of 24 to double. Thanks.